Alright guys, it's time to get on with the painting. I know you've been wondering what kind of finish we're going to go with. I have gone back and forth several times, and I really wanted to give you something that was going to be timeless, that you were really going to be able to take with you. And so I decided to give you Rustic Glam, although I know some of you have seen it. We're going to attack Rustic Glam with a slightly more traditional, neutral kind of tone than the blues that we've worked with in the past. So we're going to be learning blending. So that's a huge thing. I know with many of you, you want to learn how to blend and how to really use it in the piece that you're working with. This guy is far different than the pieces that we've blended on before and done the Rustic Glam with. So I'm hoping that it gives you a little bit of diversity in that aspect. Along with the blending, we're also going to be doing color washing. That's going to give us the antiqueness without using glazes and other foreign products. So I'm hoping that's going to be something that you can take with you. Also, we're going to be adding metallic elements. And we're also going to distress. Distressing can be stressful sometimes. We don't know what to distress and when to distress. So I'm going to give you the ability to use all of those tools independently or together, and take that along with you. So hopefully there's diversity, and with the teaching that I'm giving you, you're able to apply it to many different projects. I'm going to do it in gray tones. So what I'm going to start with is Dixie Belles Stormy Seas. This is a bluish gray color that they have. It's really pretty. That's going to be our base coat. Some of you have seen where we've done the Rustic Glam and the Moody Blue blending before, and the base coat ended up being like our pop of color kind of coat. It's a really brilliant color. In this case, we really want to start with toning down everything that you see, from the marks that we have up here, from the paint transitioning to the wood, to all the colors that we have down there. I didn't want to do a white, primer, and the reason for that is because if we do any distressing, then you would end up seeing that primer underneath. Now we're going to have to be careful if we decide to distress in this piece, and I'm going to have to be strategic in what I show you, because in some places it'll make sense, like on the corners up here where it's already this gray tone. Now if we decide to go ahead and distress down there where we've got white, that may become a problem. It's just not going to translate very well in the end of the process. So for this guy, we're going to have to be careful, but I think I can still pull it off for you. And here's the thing. If I can't, it's just paint. And I want you to learn that too. It's all just paint. And if you don't like it, you paint it over again. It's not that big of a deal. Please don't stress about the finish that you're going to give a piece. Allow room for you to grow and develop with it, and for the look to kind of take on its own persona. Don't try to force it. So let me think. Another thing is, with us going with the gray as the base, the blending technique is going to be slightly different than you may have seen in the past with me. All blending is different. It's playing, it's exploring, it's figuring out how one color plays with another and how they present with one color up under them. Before, we've done a really bright, brilliant turquoise and placed a navy blue over the top. And what that does is it gives the navy blue a completely different look and makes it seem more brilliant and less navy. With this being the base, the gray, the white's going to end up going over it, lightening it some. That's what we're going to blend with it, is a light white to maybe a light gray. We'll see as it goes. So it's going to take on a slightly different look. The gray is going to be a true gray. It's not going to have any sort of undertone that's changing it or altering it in the end. So in that way, it's going to be a little bit different than we've seen with the Moody Blue blending, which was incorporated into the Rustic Glam look that I did before. So let's get started. The first thing is going to be laying this gray in a very thin coat. I think I'm going to go for slightly full coverage. It's going to be easy with this primer on here because there is, can you hear that? It's grippy. So whenever we add the Boss primer on here, it actually leaves this feel that is It's not gritty, but you can feel that there's definitely some sort of almost texture to it. So what that's going to do is the same thing as my Crumb Coat normally does. If you've seen me paint in the past, oftentimes my Crumb Coat is a super thin introduction of the color. And the reason for that is because it allows you to apply a thin coat, start presenting the coverage. We're not going to have crackles and breaks to the finish that can come with applying something too thick because we're doing thin layers. But that said, it's not necessary for this piece because, like I said, I've already got the texture. I can kind of feel it. So my thinking is that whenever I apply the Stormy Seas, it's going to want to go full coverage, and that's absolutely fine. And if it's not full coverage, that's absolutely fine too. I'm pretty sure it's going to be close to it. That way, whenever we come with the next step, which is going to be the blending, then we will have the full coverage. So let's get started. Okay, here we go with our first coat of paint. This is Dixie Belles Stormy Seas. I'm introducing the color with my brush, trying to keep it nice and level and rather thin, although of course, as stated earlier, the primer that's on there grabs the paint really well, and this encourages one coat coverage. As I continue, I notice that the paintbrush is just pulling and dragging. The paint is very thick, which is great. However, we don't want to have brush marks. So I introduce the water bottle and begin misting the area to keep the paint moving and flowing freely. My brush is not dragging at all at this point, and this is exactly what we want. I continue painting using the water bottle to mist until the entire piece has got one coat of paint on it. If this doesn't give you full coverage or close to full coverage, you may want a second coat. Alright guys, let's move on to the next portion, which is blending. We have already painted this guy. I only did one coat. It gave me plenty of coverage, especially considering we're going to go back with a second coat that's going to contain the blending portion. But it really covered incredibly well, so I'm super impressed. I am going to show you, for the very top, I decided to sand back a tiny bit, just with a light touch with 220 grit sandpaper. And I just wanted to kind of make sure that this very top was super smooth. But what I want to show you is I went back and did a second coat using water because it helps everything to just level really nicely and it doesn't leave a bunch of brush marks and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to blend on the top. The first portion of it though is me laying the color and doing it in the same way that I would tell you this is how you paint to make sure that you're preventing brush strokes. Okay, so keep that in mind as we're introducing the color again. We're going to start with the base, which is going to be the Stormy Seas. So you're going to watch me lay that down, and then we're going to move on to introducing. I just chose drop cloth. That's what I have on hand, and it's just a light, creamy kind of color, almost like a linen or something like that. So drop cloth, imagine that. Just something to give it a little bit of lightness in the middle. And we'll see how it goes. Don't get super caught up in trying to gray with gray, blue with blue, or anything like that. You'd be surprised at how well colors blend together if you do it right. So, aside from the paint colors that we're going to be using, we're also going to be using various brushes. You'll see me using the same brush that I used earlier to paint everything, and that is the Dixie Belle Mini. It's just a short, easy to hold rather thick but not super thick brush as far as the width. And it does a really good job. The other brushes that you'll see me using possibly throughout the blending process, I've got my makeup brushes. These are some of the ones that I shared before that I use. And they're just, do you see how many bristles are in there? Like, they load these guys up with the finest bristles. And they're absolutely amazing to work with. Make sure you wash them immediately. Keep them in good condition, and they'll last you forever. And they're so soft. So you know that you're not going to have to worry about brush marks and stuff like that. They're awesome. So you may see me using these throughout. I also have my Shorty S30. To be honest, I haven't used it. I don't know if I'm going to need it, but I wanted to bring it out just in case. Of course, you can buy these at the links that I have given you. And we have our water. I'm not fancy. I don't have that little misting bottle. Not saying I'll never have one of those, but for right now, I just have my water bottle. I make sure that I get one that has a nozzle that turns. Sometimes I want to spray it and stream it so that I can squirt my dog because she's being obnoxious. And sometimes I just want a very nice mist. So I like to be able to have the adjustment setting on there. I believe that is it, guys. So let's get started. I'm going to show you first how I ended up doing that last coat of paint in a way that just, I was really impressed with how the Dixie Belle came out. I've never used it until recently. It's one of the only brands that I hadn't used. But also introducing so much water, getting it to really nicely lay down and flow. I was impressed with the color that ended up coming through. I don't have any streaking or anything like that. It's just a very nice consistent color. And it leveled out really beautifully. So I want to show you how you start doing that and then you begin building on that to create your blended look. So let's get started. Here you can see where I've misted the entire surface with my water bottle. You want just enough water that as you begin applying the paint, it's moving freely and not dragging very much. If you notice that it's still wanting to drag, just add more water. Continue until you have the area that you're working on completely covered. Remember, you want to work in sections, and so for this section I'm going to begin introducing the blending color, which is Dixie Belle Drop Cloth. You don't want to do this over the entire piece, just the area that you want to focus on. Once again, you want all of the paint to flow freely, without drag. So continue to spray as you paint, as needed. Once I have finished introducing the blending color toward the middle, next we will begin just smoothing it across the entire surface area. As you can see, I'm going to the edges of the drop cloth area and just pulling it along towards the ends. I'm not going all the way to the center. We just want to begin to introduce each of the colors to each other. So once I have the center color, which is drop cloth, pulled all the way to the edge, then I begin pulling from the edge towards the center. Once we do that, we can begin brushing the entire piece from edge to edge, beginning to blend the two with each other. I take my time working from the front to the back, moving from left to right. Continuing to wet the surface as I go. Then we begin moving in diagonal patterns. Every time I go in one direction, I then begin brushing in a perpendicular direction to that. This helps us to free all of those lines and smooth out the appearance, giving us a genuinely blended look. Water will displace the pigments, and so once you get to the point that you're beginning to like the way it looks, you may want to stop using the water bottle and just begin dragging continuously in opposite directions. As you change directions and continue to brush, the paint will begin to dry, and you should come to a point that you're happy with the results. Here you can see I'm using the Dixie Belle Mini, which is around 2.5 to 3 inches across. At this point, you may choose to go to a larger brush. Every time you have to go across, that's another possibility of striations in the pigments. So larger brushes are going to give you less of that. Once you finish one area, continue on to the next using the same principles. Introduce the new color. Again, in this instance, it's Dixie Belle Drop Cloth. Always have your base color available to blend in. And begin working left to right, front to back, and even diagonal as needed. Here you can see I'm using colored greens as well as Mermaid Tail. Colored greens is a wonderful paint used for antiquing if you like to use paint for that effect. I'm going to be taking both of these paints and essentially highlighting. This is where you take different paints and you go into the small nooks and crannies to bring out more attention to them. Just applying tiny amounts of paint and then smoothing them out. Don't worry at this point if you don't like how it looks. This is just part of the process, and though it may look a little bit harsh, whenever we continue on with the rest of the process, all of these little elements will pull together and each of the individual elements will fade away. And so I spray the area, take small amounts of the paint wherever I want to in little crevices, begin applying it and then smoothing it out. Wipe away as needed. I will continue to do this, working in small sections until the entire piece is complete. In this instance, for the most part, I would take the colored greens, go in and do a large little section, and then go with the Mermaid Tail and just add a little bit over the top of the colored greens. This is meant to just add a little bit of dimension and depth to the areas that have so much character, bringing those details out instead of making them fade back.